Welcome back to just another solar podcast with Luke Beattie and no Karl Jensen today. We're joined by guest co-host Dougal Gillman. Hey, Dougal.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Luke.
Thanks for coming along. So Karl couldn't make it today. He's gallivanting around country Victoria. So I appreciate you coming at short notice, Dougal.
I'm more than happy to help out. Good cause like this, Luke.
There's a lot of issues from the last fortnight. We've seen Infinite Energy leave the market, LG leave the market, but it doesn't make sense to get stuck into topics before we introduce today's guest. Today's guest founded and was the CEO of Gippsland Solar, ran that for 10 years, and then emerged as RACV Solar and has continued as CEO. So today we welcome Andy McCarthy. Thanks for coming, mate.
Pleasure to be here, guys. Sorry to see that Karl didn't make it. I was looking forward to it because I've actually got, you may not know this, Luke, but I've got a picture of you and Karl on my desktop from a trip to a beer hall in Munich. So I was looking forward to renewing acquaintances, having seen you every day for the last 6 months.
It's fair to say you've travelled the world and solar's been quite good to you.
I think the industry has all been very good to all of us. Actually, we've had some great times and some highlights and some lowlights, but I wouldn't swap the last 20 years for anything in the world.
So you got stuck in, you founded Gippsland Solar. Do you want to give us just a quick background of the story of how it went from there to where you are today?
Yeah, happy to. And further to that, I actually got into renewables and solar back in, I think, 2000 or 2001 as a 19-year-old. So it's all I've ever known. I didn't finish year 10, so I don't have a lot of strings to my bow. And it was just lucky that I found a purpose with solar that really gave me inspiration and passion. So I've just followed that all the way along and been fortunate enough to ride the solar coaster, as we like to call it. But yeah, it's been a hell of a ride the last 20 years. And as you said, about 2010, my wife Kelly and I, Karl got pregnant and we decided to move to Gippsland and move to a small country town. And there wasn't many solar companies in the Latrobe Valley in 2010, as you can appreciate. You know, Karl was 7 months pregnant, unemployed, heavily mortgaged to the hilt. And she said, well, if there's no one to work for, then there's no competition. So maybe you should start your own business. So we did. We paid $50 for a logo off a website, bought an invoice book. And I still remember that decision, having to make a decision about whether we'd buy a 100 invoice book for $17 or 300 invoices for $40 and thinking, gee, how am I going to sell enough to write 300 invoices? So as the story follows with all the decisions we made over the years, we bought the 300 invoices and we did write them. So it was our first risk versus reward decision. We did some hard yards in the third bedroom of our family home in the Latrobe Valley for 2 or 3 years. It was really hard grind. I still remember Karl screaming at me at 7:15 in the morning that a toll truck had just dropped another solar water system on the front lawn and the kids couldn't get their bikes past it to get down the street. so like a lot of us, I remember those early days like it was only yesterday. And I think because of that, we can appreciate the good times that we've had and slowly built the business up through hopefully good word of mouth and doing the right thing by people. Built it up.
That describes a lot of solar companies as they start out. And there's guys who can relate to that. What made the difference between you just continuing along and still working through that same invoice book and getting where you are now?
Oh, a healthy dash of self-confidence really helps, and resilience, I think.
Yeah.
I've always had a firm belief in where we're going. I don't think you would start a renewable energy business in the Latrobe Valley in 2010 unless you had a healthy dose of confidence and belief in where this industry was going. I mean, I didn't expect to be installing megawatts of solar on a hospital in Traralgon, to be honest. I don't think any of us would have expected that. But, I just got on the solar coaster because I was so passionate about renewables. And I tell you what, over the last, particularly 2010 to 2015, I mean, you can imagine some of the days I had in the valley where, some of the council weren't supportive, the local heavily influential people in the region weren't very supportive. And I mean, there was days that I came home just bashing my head against the wall thinking, where are we going? And Karl was just such a wonderful North Star for me just to bring me back. And she'd always say, if you want to make a difference in this space and really impact on the world, the Latrobe Valley is the place to do it. If you can bring people along for the ride and make an impact there, well, then that's more important than going to, Castlemaine or Yakandanda, where everyone believes the same things that you do. And she was always right. And sit back and take a lot of pride, not in my achievements, but, Kelly as well, and the team we built around us and where we've got to today. And the fact that there is complete and utter social license for renewables in the Valley in 2022, I think is testament to the hard work of a lot of good people over the last 12 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And they say if you want to get fit, you should run up hills. And I'd say opening a solar business in Latrobe Valley is a pretty steep hill to run up.
So certainly had some some pretty fractious moments and a few outspoken comments and to and fro with, mayors and influential people in the valley. And it didn't make me very popular at the time. And I think it's fair to say that I had to get my head out of my own backside. Maybe 5 years ago, I realised that I was taking completely the wrong approach. I was very much of the opinion that the world's transitioning. If you guys don't believe it, then I couldn't care less. It's not my problem. I just had this sort of belligerence that wouldn't have come across well to people who've only ever known the coal-fired power industry. They might have worked there for 20 years and their dad did for 40 years. And then some smarty pants from the inner green belt of Melbourne says, guys, we're transitioning. I don't care if you agree or not. My approach was just all wrong in hindsight. So, I just started shifting my tone and my language and started putting up stories of apprentices picking up their high vis on their first day of a career in renewables and telling all those stories. Everyone loves jobs and apprenticeships. So I had to have a real reality check myself and try and appreciate people that might have taken out a mortgage and then the Hazelwood closure was announced and they're going through some really tough times and my language wasn't helpful. So, I've been on a bit of a journey, and I think hopefully with me softening my approach and maybe delivering a more positive message, I hope it's had a positive impact.
Because you would have had a target on your back. They were closing Hazelwood. It's a coal heartland and you're coming with new energy. And there might have been a perception that you were taking the jobs, you were upsetting what's always been done, like you said, for generations in the area.
Oh, I try not to be too outspoken politically, but I would call out, I think it was Peter Walsh, was it, leader of the Nationals at the time? And we got some funding and we did a program with Regional Development Victoria. We employed 18 people in our business. We expanded our facility. And you can imagine when you busted your guts in your third bedroom and you get to the stage where you're getting a bit of contribution and creating 18 new jobs and you're so proud of those jobs. You think about the stories, the people behind those 18 jobs. And then he came out in the media and goes, oh, wow, they're out there celebrating 18 jobs when Hazelwood's just closed and they've just taken 800 jobs. I was just ropeable. I was like, first of all, what a false equivalency that is, as if our 18 jobs would have stopped the closure of Hazelwood had we not created them anyway. Anyway, so I came out in the media and I was like, screw you. Those jobs mean a lot to me. They're people building houses, having babies, buying cars at the local dealership. Have some respect for those people and for the work that we've done and my team have done to build those opportunities. And it just goes to show that it's just the politics of the energy transition really makes me sick sometimes. I get really frustrated with some of the commentary out there, but hopefully we're getting more mature as a country with our discourse.
Yeah, and I think even as well, Andy, being able to provide a pathway for the youth of the Valley to pursue a different career. They don't have to now go into certain industries. You've really opened up a different avenue for a lot of people. Yeah, and look, that particular comment, it still riles me now 5 years later because, one of those workers, for example, his dad worked in the power station his whole life, and he gave Nick an opportunity to do some work experience in the power station. And he said, look, I'm going to give you a chance to get a taste of the workforce. He said, but if you want to have a career in the valley and you want to be an electrician, you need to get into renewables. That's where the jobs are. So how good's that someone who's worked in the industry his whole life can still take his bias out and recognise that, he'll give his son an opportunity because this is where he can give him some work experience, but encouraging him to get into renewables because that's where the future is. I think that to me is the sort of thing we need to focus on in the valley, not some of this nonsense that we hear in the media from some sections.
Also, you've mentioned about social media and sharing about jobs and good news stories, which you do really well and your company's done really well. There's a lot of stuff that's been posted with competitors and contemporaries from around the country. The phrase you've mentioned to me is co-opetition.
Yeah, I have really embraced the idea of co-opetition. I think it's something that it took me a long time to realise. I'm not going to stand here on some sort of a platform and pretend that I've always been that way. I had to learn that. I had to learn how to change my language in the valley with this energy transition. There was a time when we were building the business and I was just so relentlessly focused on success, and that's all I cared about. First, second, and third. Build a big business, win every job. Just try and crush the opposition. Frankly, it was just part of my DNA, and I just was such a competitive person. And a series of things happened, probably around about 2015 or 2016. We probably got to the point where we were reasonably comfortable with the business that we'd built, and we weren't as desperate for every single sale. I think we had a nice even flow, we had a decent pipeline coming through, and a good team of behind us. But at the same time, I remember going to an event with one of the local members from the Latrobe Valley Authority, the LVA. And he pulled me aside and he said, look, you've done some wonderful things. He said, but you're not good for the industry down here. All you care about is winning. You don't care about building an industry. You just care about building a business. My initial reaction was like, you're telling me that I have to go out of my way to make my competitors better, or just try and spoon feed them, or to help them. I had this arrogant sort of initial response, thinking, who's he to tell me that I've got to make someone else's business better? But then I reflected on it like every night for a couple of weeks, and I thought about it, and I thought, he's absolutely right that, you have two obligations when you're in an emerging industry like this. One is to grow a business and pay you the wages and make sure that you support the people in the business with success. But the other obligation is to industry itself, and to create a movement to build an entire industry of responsible, mature, credible providers that are a genuine part of the energy mix. And while I was out there trying to beat everyone down and win every job, I wasn't really doing anything for the cause. Upon reflection, I took a lot of that on board. And I think maybe a couple of weeks later, one of my biggest competitors from Solar Hard in Traralgon called me on a Saturday and said he'd got the wrong mounting feet for a job. Could tell he was a bit nervous about ringing me, and he was a bit reluctant. But we opened the factory for him. We gave him the feet that he needed and didn't charge him for it. And I think, there's been a series of opportunities I've had to extend an olive branch to competitors, jobs we've lost, and we can help them out to save them a drive back to Melbourne, 4 hours return. And we always take it now. And I think that's also set a good example for my team, that we do want to win and we want to be competitive, but not at the expense of the industry as a whole. I'd also call out, someone like yourself, Luke, you probably remember this, but, we've competed against each other in the space for a long time. And even still, I rang you one time when I was in a hole and really needed some Fronius inverters, I believe it was, Dougal, and I was a little bit reluctant, thinking, is he not going to want to help me, because they were as rare as hen's teeth at that stage. You didn't have a moment's hesitation in helping me out with a pallet of inverters, and didn't overcharge me. You just did the right thing, because I think that you see the industry the same way as I do, and I pay credit for you for that as well.
Thanks, Andy. I do. I believe that the good guys can win out in the end. And that's why seeing people like yourself and others who have success, I think it's good to celebrate that success and to be happy for them.
Yep.
And if you want similar success, there's graft. But when it might be a competitor or someone that you're not aligned with via business has a win, and you celebrate it and you think it's a great thing, and you're genuinely happy for them.
And the only thing I'd say to that is that I don't have some open-ended desire to help everyone in the industry through a sense of altruism. Like, there are companies I have no respect for, and I'll do anything to see them fail. I don't make any bones about that. Like, honestly, like companies like Solar Gain, the Gem Energies, the Enervest, the Smart Commercials of the world, these are not my enemy. My enemy is the guy that I saw, the team I saw on the roof of an IGA on the main street a couple of weeks ago, on the roof, with no shoes on, no shirt, no hat, no fall protection, and flagrantly just slumming their nose up at the rules and the regulations and putting people's lives at risk. They're our enemy in this industry. And I tell you what, I'll do anything I can to try and avoid handing a job to any of companies like that, because, I've got a pretty thick skin in this industry, and there's not too many things faze me these days. But when I lose a job by a couple of $1,000s to a company that's flagrantly ignoring the rules to save a bit of money like that on those types of things like safety and PPE, I just can't get past that. We all need to get together and make sure that those companies aren't successful. And I don't wish to name names. We all know who they are. And the regulators have an obligation to really improve, because at the moment, I don't see enough being done. And I get so frustrated by this lack of an even playing field. And I'll happily call it out in this podcast, because it's not good enough. And it's not good for the industry. Someone's at risk every time they get on a roof working for a company that doesn't care about their safety.
And that was one of the things that Infinite Energy cited, or Sumitomo cited, in the decision to shut the business down, is the low barrier to entry. And the fact that you get companies like Infinite, like Solar Gain, like RACV Solar, and I could name dozens of companies or more around the country who, yes, we have heavy regulation, but they follow it to the T. They are constantly improving and making sure that everything's compliant. So they cited the low barrier to entry. So maybe you could argue that more regulation is going to be a good thing and kick some of those guys out. But as you say, like Solar Vic is probably one of the strictest ones in the country.
Yep.
And you've still got guys without fall protection, without skin protection, without any common sense. And they're the ones you're competing against.
Absolutely. And that's not really Solar Vic's remit. I would say that, they've copped a lot of heat in Victoria for bringing the program in and for some of their changes they've made to compliance. I would be confidently say that Victoria is the safest state in Australia to install solar. I pay credits to the Solar Victoria team. They've stared down the industry, and some of the noise that I saw from people at the start, I thought was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they're trying to drive a higher standard. If you aren't prepared to add $1,000 to your operating cost per job to do things safely, compliantly, And further to that, understanding that a company trying to sell systems for $22.99 add $1,000 to their cost base, and it has a 30% impact on their cost to deliver a system. So it disproportionately makes it harder for the cheap and nasty companies when you increase compliance. So, I pay credit to Solar Victoria for some of the work they've done. I've been pretty open with Kane from the CEC. They need to do a lot more. There are some areas that I think they get unfairly pilloried for that maybe aren't their areas of responsibility. But I tell you what, it's time for us to declare war, pardon the phrase, on these companies that are doing the wrong thing, because it's reprehensible, and it just drives me nuts, the fact that it still happens in 2022. We would get, without a doubt, half the time that we set foot on a roof, someone's watching us ready to call work cover. If we stepped out of a scissor lift onto a roof and then connected our harness, we'd get held to account. Now, that's fine. I stand by that. That is a good thing for the industry, but it's all I ever ask for is an even playing field, and we don't have that in this industry in any state or territory.
It's an interesting side, Andy. You mentioned earlier about being criticised for trying to build the industry rather than just your business. Would it be fair to say that by Gippsland Solar and RACV Solar subsequently really making sure that all of your systems are at the highest standard, highest quality, the best install quality that you can have, that those install companies around you are aping your business model and trying to mimic what you're doing, and thus you are sort of lifting up the whole industry as a result?
Yeah, I'm not here to make it all about us, but we have had that exact feedback from some of our competitors that we're making it very hard for them and made them raise the bar. So, I think that's a good thing. I've had commentary from people in influential positions saying it's a good thing that RACV Solar is growing because you are lifting the median standard for the whole industry in Victoria. I take a lot of pride in that. We acquired another business last year, and I took them all out for dinner and said to the installers, I said, there will be an uncomfortable period of time here where you're going to be held to such a high standard. Everything you do, every time you get on a roof, someone's ready to call work cover, and you'll have a magnifying glass on you all the time. So you'll have to get used to that. But then you'll hit this point where we have all of the investment, all of the systems, processes. One of our guys is most likely going to be parked up the road doing an external audit. You may not even know they've been. They'll be filling out a report on whether you've been adhering to our standards, and you might get 3 warnings, and then you may not have a role with us anymore. But when you get to that point where you are given all of the resources to do the right thing and have a standard set for you that you can never deviate from, then you're untouchable because you're always doing the right thing no matter who's watching. And that's a really comfortable place to be in. And frankly, I don't think there's a whole bunch of solar companies that could put their hand on their heart and say that. So I'm proud of the fact that we're one of those companies, and I think it's good for the industry and good for workers.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think your success is testament to the fact that you can implement all of these things without it having a negative impact on your ability to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the elephant in the room, as always, it comes back to money. It's not cheap to do things the right way all the time. I've often said to customers, if the company that is quoting against us is prepared to compromise safety for $800 or $900, then you're maybe not our kind of customer. Maybe we value different things. You just have to have confidence that the cream will eventually rise to the top, and these companies can't just continue to operate like this and get away with it. And I live in hope that we're still going to get there, even though it's taking longer than I would like.
So a question for the panellists, if I may. I mean, we've talked about quality, and Luke mentioned Infinite Energy earlier. From a WA perspective, I would have thought they were very much a quality installer, adhering to all the standards, choosing quality product, really meticulous in their designs, and yet they haven't been able to survive. What do we feel is the main sort of causes that drove Sumitomo to make that decision?
We can go off the letter that they released to installers and suppliers, and the first one I've mentioned, which is the low barrier to entry and low-cost operators who are coming in, and trying to compete with them with a quality offering isn't competitive anymore. I take it as a commentary on our industry because LG's also pulled out of the market in the last fortnight, citing similar things. So it's become the norm for us to run these low-cost operations, competing against even lower-cost operations who might be cutting corners. I can tell you that both Karl and myself were there in the early days of Infinite and partnered with them in some ways and had good, strong personal relationships with the people in there. They did an amazing job to build a quality business that was doing the right thing. So maybe it is a commentary on our industry when a business like that decides to pull the pin. And it was a decision of Sumitomo, so the company that acquired them a few years ago. We've got LG looking at our industry more broadly and saying, this isn't viable for us to continue. And then we have Sumitomo via Infinite saying, rooftop solar, business and commercial isn't viable for us.
Yeah, look, I'm not surprised by it, to be honest. We've spoken about this a number of times about how doing things safely and compliantly and still trying to win jobs against the some of the companies out in the market is extremely hard work. So I would imagine, without putting words in their mouth, that as a company that needs to make a return on their investment, they probably just looked at eroding margins, increase in compliance and safety, and thought, well, we're only ever going to do things the right way. We're never going to race to the bottom and start taking shortcuts the way other companies are. But as it currently stands, to do everything properly, to meet all of our obligations, it's not financially viable. That's a real shame. It's a really sad thing for this industry. I put a post on LinkedIn saying, if anyone from Infinite's looking for work, if I can help connect you, please let me know. And I had 3 people reach out that day. And they're all just wonderful people who busted their guts to try and build that business up. And, we all know a lot of the legacy team from Infinite Energy. Like, the culture at Infinite Energy was so strong. You could actually meet someone into Solar Drinks and you can meet them and have a laugh with them and go, I bet you work at Infinite Energy. You're just that kind of person. It's quite remarkable how they have a DNA about them. We've tried very hard to build that same culture here. And I always looked at Infinite as a company that I aspired to be like, in terms of the culture, the people they brought in, their values, how much fun they had as well. Like, they were a professional organisation, but they had a hell of a good time. And it's a really sad day to see a company like that disappear from this industry.
Will it create a vacuum, do you think, that will be filled with lower quality product and installs?
Unless there's a proper reckoning within the industry, that's going to be ever present. But if that gap doesn't get filled with a quality operator, then the alternative is that you're going to have the other guys picking up more of the market. The guys slapping up a 6.5 kilowatt system on a house that might benefit from a larger system, or a customer that may benefit from batteries or may benefit from a more sophisticated solution, and they just get a slapped up system at a cheap price. I hope that gap gets filled by a quality operator, and the market is there for people who want to get the quality solution.
Yeah, 100% agree. And the thing is, when the cheap companies disappeared from this sector and you get a little bit of confidence that maybe that race to the bottom rubbish business model is just a dying sector. I was really confident with some of the companies that fell over that I believe are doing things that were detrimental to this industry. I was very bullish back in the early days when it first started happening that vacuum would be filled and people would realise, okay, so you just can't do cheap and nasty solar because it's just not viable anymore with the levels of compliance and expectation from the market. And then it's just, after a while, you start to realise it's kind of like a game of whack-a-mole where you whack one on the head and they go down, another one pops up somewhere else. And I'm the eternal optimist, guys, but sometimes you do have to wonder about, whether that is just going to actually eventually drive a race to the top, and the better companies survive and charge a fair margin. Everyone realises you have to charge X amount to do a good, safe, and compliant job with quality product and support your client. But evidence shows over the last 7 or 8 years that it just keeps reinventing itself, that sector, and a bit of phoenixing and companies that strategically close down. It does dent my confidence in where we're going as a sector sometimes, I have to say.
Almost what we need is a young Andy McCarthy to emerge in WA. And
I'm only 40, Dougal. Give me a spell. I'm only halfway through my career, mate.
Like I said, a young Andy McCarthy who can come through.
Younger Andy McCarthy.
Sure, younger. Grab the bull by the horns and actually have the same passion, the same drive to create a really strong quality solar business and not play in that cheap space. And be the influence that you've been in Victoria to a WA market, and really, take the whole industry on a journey. And I'm sure they exist. It's just about identifying that diamond in the rough and then putting the right support mechanisms around them through mentorship, through the right quality suppliers, and then people who can help them grow that business into something quite successful.
I would love to find a way to identify and nurture people like that. Like, I'll start to talk like an older man in the industry now that you've called me old Dougal in a roundabout kind of way.
I think I'm older.
Yeah. But, I reflect on guys like Jake Warner from Penrith Solar Centre. I mean, I'm in a position now, I've been in the industry 20 years. I probably have another 20 years left in the industry, so I'm kind of at the halfway point. I've been fortunate to get a lot of knowledge from some of the old solar pioneers of the industry, the Nigel Morrises of the world that have been very generous with their time. And Gavin, God rest his soul as well, was an amazing mentor to me. Every time I was in a pickle, had to make any tough business decision, my hand on autopilot would just grab the phone and ring Gavin for support. I cannot tell you how much I appreciated that growing up, cutting my teeth in this industry. So then when Jake Warner rang me one time, I didn't know him from a bar of soap, and he said, mate, I've just admired everything you're doing. I want to be where you are in 5 years' time. He drove down all the way in his EV from from New South Wales, Western Sydney down to Gippsland, completely unpacked everything we do in our business. We just had an open door, explained everything we do, all of our innovations and IP. And he went back and took a lot of that advice, and have a look where he is now. He's just built this incredible facility in Penrith. He's absolutely smashing it, and he's doing everything to a high standard because he just wanted to sponge up all that knowledge from someone that he believed was a good example of how to do things well. If we can find, well, Jake's not that young now, so I'll say a young.
I was going to say from a wise old man.
Yeah, that's right. Jake's about to get married. He's having a baby, so he's not that young now. So maybe a younger Jake Warner. If we can identify those people and say, if you run your business and adhere to these sort of standards that we believe are non-negotiable in the industry, the companies, the leaders like myself and others that really value that will give you all the support you need to help you grow and carve out a good market share and build a strong business and leverage our networks, because you're the future of this industry and you'll help drive that standard that we all want to see going forward.
There we go. Any WA listeners seeking a little bit of business advice, raise your hand, reach out to us. We're here to support you.
Do you want
Any
to
state.
plug your email?
Yeah,
Give us
right.
your phone number and email just so they know where to contact.
No, I'm not giving out my mobile number.
Waiting by the phone.
I'm not giving out my mobile number because my mobile number was the 1300 number for the first 5 years. So I still get customers calling me who installed a system in 2013 and the inverter's flashing red and she needs to talk to me. So,
I think the LG distributor network over the last 2 days have felt the same experience. I think that list has gone around to every 2-bit wholesaler and everyone ringing them up.
So on the Infinite, it's interesting that a big company coming in and taking over a regional player that's established a presence in a market has then not been able to carry that business forward. Andy, when RACV acquired Gippsland Solar, was that something that was playing on your mind?
It was pretty much the only thing that played on my mind. At the end of the day, we'd had a number of approaches to be acquired between 2019, sorry. And they just weren't our kind of people. In fact, I walked out of one meeting and my wife said, we didn't build a business up to sell it to those guys so they can fatten it up and then send it off to market. It's just obvious when you don't have an alignment of values. And look, I don't wish to pass commentary on Infinite or Sumitomo. I have no insights into what happened in there. But just from our perspective, the whole point of mergers and acquisitions is that it's about people at its very essence. I got sucked into sitting in boardrooms and looking at balance sheets and P&Ls, talking about EBITs and earnouts and weighted averages. And what I realised, fortunately in time, is that M&A is all about people and the impact on people. And in fact, I had a conversation with one of my staff just a couple of days ago who's going through a tough time. And what he said to me was, I was really worried when RACV acquired you because I didn't sign up to work for RACV, to be honest. I signed up to work for Andy. You're out there telling everyone what a great thing it was that we've been acquired. I'm like, yeah, that's because you just got a payday. I didn't get a payday. I've just had a new employment contract, but I didn't get nothing to show for it. So of course you would say it's a great thing. That was something that we really played on my mind, and it's probably fortunate that it did play on my mind because that was the biggest risk, was that people would feel like we'd lost the magic and we just become a corporate. And again, I just love being part of an RACV organisation. I could not speak more highly of them, but at the end of the day, corporate culture does potentially have a negative impact when they acquire, especially solar companies who are often entrepreneurial startup, bit of Wolf of Wall Street kind of thing going on. And, a little bit of that dies if you're not really, really careful. So I spent 2 years preserving the culture of this business and shielding our team from that corporate influence, to be honest. And I think now I'm really comfortable that we've set our identity in stone and that we have all of the good things of RACV without some of the corporate stuff that would potentially have some of our legacy staff heading for the exit because it's not the same.
Just the fact that you're still there as CEO and still guiding the ship is testament that culture is being carried across, and the fact that you're still there, you've still got, your key people that you built and you grew with as Gippsland Solar.
And it's chicken and egg, to be honest. Like I don't have to stay here now. I'm on a salary like everyone else, and I don't have to be here. But it's chicken and egg. Like leading my team and having all these people that helped us build the business to where it is today, combined with some amazing people that have come in since the acquisition. We've gone from 80 staff to 128 as of yesterday. The people that I get to lead every day give me the fuel to keep going. I walk in, I look around and go, love all of you people. Like love feels like too strong a word for it maybe, but that's how it feels. It's this common passion, they're all on the same journey together and we feel each other's highs and lows. It's intangible, but it's really powerful. And as long as I get to keep leading this team of people, I'm not going anywhere.
The LG situation's an interesting one for me. It's obviously it was a very strong panel for a long time with their LG dealers, and they were very, very loyal customers to that brand. And it had a very good and well-recognised consumer brand in the market. Them dropping off does create an opportunity for another brand to come through and really pick up those customers. But I'm not quite sure how the dealers will feel and whether or not they'd be willing to put all their eggs in one basket again.
LG dealers were selling the product based on the longevity of the company, and they have indicated that they're going to stick by their warranties and they're going to do the right thing. But I agree with you. Aligning yourself with one brand is dangerous. And this shows us why. You would have thought that LG is one of the rock solid brands in the industry. A lot of the companies we're dealing with haven't been around as long as their warranties, or have barely been around that long. So
the other thing I'd say to that is that, as much as I love a lot of the people that work at LG and they have great people in there, there is an undeniable approach that they had of actually talking down the longevity of the other manufacturers in the industry. I'll call that out because, I was an LG dealer for 3 or 4 years, love the product, love most of the people in there, but that you cannot deny that the training sessions and some of the industry language that went out there was all about talking down the financial viability and longevity of other manufacturers. It's a very dangerous game to play, especially when you want to be promoting yourself as the number one quality provider in the sector. Your approach to market and your language has to be commensurate with that. And I think there's been a little bit of schadenfreude, to be honest, over the last few days. And I think that's really sad, but I think, unfortunately, some of that behaviour has maybe generated that schadenfreude. And I think it's a lesson for manufacturers that it's really, really important, for a wholesaler, a retailer, anyone, tell your own story, tell a positive message about what you bring. You don't need to talk down other people. If you believe you're the best, sell the vision, tell the customer how you're going to help them, and just keep the gloves on. Because again, we talk about trying to better the industry. Some of these things are not rising all ships on the tide. It's only about feathering your own business at the expense of others, and I don't think that's really helpful for longevity of this sector.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say to that, and it's sort of a general statement, that the best warranty is a quality product that you never need to claim on. And hopefully LG, with their 25-year warranty, it's a product that very few warranty claims actually come to surface. That will be good for the retailers. It will be good for the consumers.
Yeah, I fully agree. I reckon we might have 10,000 solar panels, LG solar panels out there. I don't think we've had one back. Frankly, I probably don't expect to. It's a really, really good product. I have no regrets about using the product for years. It's an excellent product, excellent company. I toured the factory in Korea and everything I did was first class. It's almost like the manufacturer's version of Infinite. It's just a really sad thing that a company that wants to do quality has decided that it's actually too hard to make something at the highest standard and try and charge accordingly for it. And it's great loss to the industry and really sad for some really good people.
And just before we wrap up, Andy, I'm just curious to hear about some of the frontiers that you're currently pushing, be it technology or market.
Oh, gee, it's a dynamic time at the moment. We're really doubling down on the commercial space. We're installing at the moment what I believe is the largest battery behind the meter in Australia, in New South Wales, and that's breaking a number of records. And it's been incredible for our team, the intellectual property we've developed, just what it's done for the energy within our workforce. Like they're just running through brick walls. Like we're doing things that are breaking records. We're making a big impact on this sector. That's where we want to be. I mean, that project in the millions and millions of dollars, that project is, and RACV with its balance sheet, with its membership database, its 118 years of history and all the other things that I won't go into, that's our right to play. That market where they want to de-risk it. They want a partner that, frankly, if anything goes wrong, they can sue you, and there's plenty there to sue. That's, without being crude about it, that's what it's all about in this industry, is bankability and peace of mind. And I believe that RACV Solar and RACV are entering this sphere where it's really companies like ours, alongside, the AGLs, the Origins with big balance sheets that are the only ones that have the capability, technical and financial, to deliver these projects. I might be a little bit biased, but I think in that sphere, we're the only ones that I think have a real sense of social purpose and walking the talk.
And you came out of retirement for cricket. I saw you out on the MCG the other day.
Oh, yeah. yeah. We sponsored the Melbourne Renegades, the women's team, and they had a sponsors day where they got your they printed off a shirt with your name on the back, and you got to warm up in the change rooms and go out on the MCG. And
what was it like playing on the MCG?
Oh, it was incredible. We're out there a few days before Australia played Sri Lanka, so we're on the actual turf. They filmed it, so we had the replays up on the big screen. We had a commentator taking the mick out of us all day long. I managed to hit one boundary and slip the disc in my back. Tried to got a short ball and tried to pull it behind square, and I got it away for 4. But yeah, I nearly had to miss playing cricket on Saturday for moving north as a result. And I got completely outshone by my sales consultant Andrew Phillip, who hit a 6 and a couple of 4s, and then got 4 stumpings and a wicket with the ball. So
wow.
It's an incredible day. Yeah, absolutely.
What an experience, man. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'm just one of those corporate flogs that just buys his way into one of those experiences instead of getting there through ability. Yeah, I'm proud of that.
So in the name of Co-opetition, next time you get that invitation, if you could share it round, I'll be much obliged.
I'm not sure my team would appreciate that. I've only got 2 tickets, and I need to make sure. It's very hard to spread it when you've got 120-something staff and you get 2 tickets. Trying to work out who gets the Willy Wonka golden ticket was a tough decision.
So needless to say, look forward to catching up with you in person as borders open. I think March the 3rd will be open in WA. So targeting smart energy in Sydney and, of course, all energy and some other things around the country. So it'll be great to catch up with you in person. Andy and Dougal as well. Thanks for joining us today, Dougal, and stepping in.
My pleasure.
And yeah, thanks again, Andy, and all the best with everything.
I've enjoyed the chat, guys. I appreciate having me on, and I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, doing a wonderful job. So, encourage anyone to go through the back catalogue and have a listen.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, leave comments, and share it around to anyone who might get benefit.